Hello, folks. How are you doing? It's been quite a while. We've been able to use this medium of streaming to communicate. I've been experiencing some really horrendous streaming issues, but I'm hoping that I'm not going to have any dropped signals today. There have been a lot of dropped signals over the past about going to 2 weeks now. So I decided to take a break from trying to communicate with y'all via streaming. It just wasn't working. It was ridiculous. But the internet connection folks have been working on it since last night, and they assure me that I should see a difference. Um, if you hear any dropped frames, you see any dropped frames, do let me know, and I'll be calling them back in to do something else to get this rolling. So how have you all been? What's been going on? What's new? What's new in the world of your PMP prep? Is it coming along as planned? Or have you taken a big break? Some folks, I'm guessing, have taken a break from studying for the exam. It's been very low traction. I haven't seen a lot of people online, my typical students that I see grinding at the mill. I don't see any of that. They've been kind of on the back burner. So I'm wondering, what's going on in your world? How's PMP working out for you? This afternoon, maybe this evening, it's almost evening on the East Coast, I'm going to be speaking to you guys about making the PMBOK guide simple. A lot of times we get caught up in the verbose language in the PMBOK guide. We get caught up in the ITTOs, and people just find it hard to make sense out of that. See? So what I decided I would do for today is make it as simple as possible and take one process, for example, the develop project charter process. I thought I'd take that process, talk about it a little bit, help some of those folks who are hitting a brick wall, help them demystify what exactly happens in the develop project charter process, and hopefully you can take that, use it as a template for understanding the other pieces of the PMBOK guide. Just to give you a recap on what I've been talking about over the past week in some of the videos that you may have seen coming in, I've been speaking about the importance of intentionality. Being intentional about your PMP prep, making sure that you repeat in an intentional fashion whatever you're doing. The good things that you do on day 1, you want to do that on day 2, day 3, day 4, on and on until you get certified. And in those videos, lots of the videos that are currently up there, I talk about the importance of getting it down to a rhythm. You get it down to a rhythm so much so that you feel uncomfortable if you are not following the schedule. That's the level that I want you to get to. I want you to experience some discomfort if you're not studying, if you're not putting in the time, if you're not putting the hours, because the only way you're going to get this done is by following a plan, by being intentional, building a day at a time. You got to build, and you got to stick to the plan. You got to lay those bricks, the velocity that you promised in the beginning to lay those bricks. You got to keep up with that velocity. You got to keep laying it. The problem with some of my students, they start off, and before you know it, they're falling off the wagon. There's one reason or the other for why they haven't kept it up. Some folks, and you know yourself, I hope you're listening, those of you who do this, you get on the learning management system, you pay to do it. You get on the system and then you don't use it. What good is that? And then I ask you, where have you been? Why haven't you been studying on the system? You last logged in May. You paid for 6 month access and you last logged in May. How does that make sense? You're not utilizing what you paid for. How do you expect to succeed? You know, I feel quite sorry for people who are spending money on systems that they don't use. We've had, this morning I got a report of about 3 or 4 students who paid for the system and they ain't using the system. In fact, they're probably not studying. Because I get emails, Phil, I'm sorry, work got the better of me. Okay, I gave you that excuse on the first week. Now it's the second week. Are you using the same excuse? Come on, that's not how to do it. I expect better traction. I expect better engagement from you. This is to help your career. You got to think about the end game here. The end game is to get certified so that you can better your standard of living. Let's be honest, in my case, I wasn't happy with what I was making. I needed to take where I was, move it up several notches up. I wasn't making enough dough, not enough paper coming in. And I needed to change that. My PMP, I'm telling you, it changed that. It changed that. Within a couple of years of being certified, I could actually think of saving huge, significant sums of money, going to 6 figures in savings. And I'm talking about without much hassle. So I needed that PMP. I tell you, when I got it, I needed it more than ever. And after getting certified, salary went up 300% plus, and it just went on and upwards from there. Some of you may already be in positions that you want. Maybe it's not a position thing. Maybe it's not a money thing. It may be a position thing. Maybe you cannot climb any higher if you don't have a PMP, as in a company I was in. Or maybe it's just about you saying, I achieved what I set out to. How about that? I achieved my objective. I got to the destination. You see, in some organizations, you could try to sell the stuff in the PMBOK guide all you like, but if you ain't certified, ain't nobody gonna listen to you. That's why you need to get that certificate. If for nothing else, it will shut people up who say, oh, Phil isn't that clever in project management. Nah, yeah, he says he's a good project manager, but yeah, look at his peers, they're PMPs. Why isn't he? People can be bad sometimes. They use this stuff against you as a PM. Okay, if he's that good, why hasn't he gotten the PMP? And you can tell me all day long, oh, I don't want to work for those firms. They're ridiculous. Let's be honest, some of us are in those firms right now, and you just got to get your PMP to shut them up. Now, don't give me the excuse of I don't want to be in those firms. You're there already. You know how it is in those firms. But when you get PMP certified, people are shut up. Seriously. I've seen this in a big firm I was in, and management said, if you want to go high in project management, you got to show us that you've spent some time and dedication combing through what the PMI says is a standard. And that's just the way it was. And at the end of the day, PMs were failing. And I said, look, I can help you. I've taken this exam, passed the exam. I would like to help these people, boss. And my boss at the time, I spoke about him yesterday, a Theory Y manager, not Theory X, Theory Y, who is not threatened. He was a PMP, by the way. He said, all right, Phil, I'm going to tell my boss and see if my boss will agree. And his boss agreed. And that's how I started adding value to people, by training them in that firm. It was not my job. My job was not to be a project management trainer, but I saw this need, and I was really concerned about the poor people failing the exam and not being able to apply for higher levels of project management. And my boss agreed, and that's how I started training. You see, some of you are in firms like that where You know, if you don't get the PMP, it's going to be a tug of war, you know. So I want to encourage you, if you've fallen off the wagon, you know, you're not doing what you should, how about doing what you should? How about staying fixed on that learning management system? Don't get me wrong, sometimes I know it's hard, but you just got to keep applying yourself, you know? Like for me, this morning, I took out my iPad mini and I said, Phil, today you are going to watch this course on risk management. It's been kind of a revolving door where I've been making excuses. But I said, nope, today, Phil, you're going to watch that course, whether you were in the course when it was recorded or not. So I turned it on and I forced myself to stay there for hours watching the content. And I started absorbing it. You know, at first, your body is going to reject whatever you're trying to feed it. After a while of feeding it the right stuff, it's just going to say, okay, I accept. And that's what happened to me. Now I'm itching to go back to finish that course. You know, itching to go back and watch the risk doctor as he schools me on risk management, you see. And that course, by the way, is going to be available in September. But I'm going through it again. I was there in the recording, but I'm going through it again. So I'm telling you this because I want to motivate you to take out your iPad or your, you know, Samsung or Android, whatever the Google boys have done by putting it on the Android platform. Now you lose track of everyone. I mean, the Amazon has got it, Samsung has got it. The only people that are maintaining their own are Billy's people at Microsoft. They refuse that. They've got their own system. But whatever phone or device you've got, folks, seriously, you want to take it out and you want to force feed yourself. If you're having problems getting back into the swing of it, you want to first go on a force feeding mode. And from force feed mode, you're going to start missing this stuff. All right. So I want to encourage you. Take out your materials. Okay. Begin digesting the materials. Begin assimilating and absorbing the materials. And at the end of it all, you're going to be extremely happy that you did what you did. Because you're then going to be a PMP worth your weight in gold. You're not even going to give it a thought. If I called any of my students who got certified last week, if I call James or Irene and I say, hey guys, how do you feel about ITTOs? Well, let me say James because I know Irene is studying. But if I say James, what do you feel about the ITTOs? He's probably going to say, Phil, I'm not giving them that much thought right about now. I don't blame him. Because once you get done with that stuff, you go back to your real world. The question then becomes, how do I take what I know and apply to the real world? You see, it then moves from I have to know to I have to apply. And they're two different mindsets. I have to know, you are almost like a slave to the fact that you are owing yourself. But I have to apply, you're now more in boss mode. You know, you're making attempts to recall, and it's just less stress. So I want to encourage you. Go from that mode of I have to I'm done and I'm a boss. Okay? So today I wanted to talk to you guys about making a PMBOK guide easy. I wanted to talk about how you can take that book, the PMBOK guide, and simplify it. And I am going to be playing for you probably in the next 10 minutes if I can get this hard drive to work. I'm going to be playing for you some ideas about how you can take the project charter, simplify it, simplify how you look at it. If you can simplify how you look at the development of every one of those items on page 89, wow, how cool would that be? And I want you to do it. Take a look at page 89 and ask yourself, which of these things have I developed in the past? Start off from there. Make those easy for you. Project management plan, project charter, scope statement. But those that you haven't developed before, you might want to check out the link. I always share this link almost every 2 or 3 sessions. I share this link. Hey, Monique and Renee, how you guys doing? I just saw that you had joined. I hope you're doing okay. And I hope, Renee, I hope you're burning the midnight oil to finish that LMS. I want to see some mock exams, buddy. I'm not seeing those mock exams from you. 50 question mocks. And then there are 3 200 question mocks, Renee. Monique, same for you. I hope you're grinding away at that learning management system quiz bank. We got the challenge quiz bank, the 2020 quiz bank. You know, I'm trusting you guys are pounding the LMS, knocking it with the hammer, the quest for absorbing the information. I really hope you are. Hey, you're most welcome. I hope you guys are really. Hey, I need to see a PMP cert ASAP from you guys. Hey, I know you've had some good time to work on the system. I just need you to put that final, nail into Pimpy to just get him to shut up once and for all. Get Pimpy to be quiet, and to do that, you need to start taking those mocks, because I haven't seen any of those mocks from you guys. You're doing the 2020s, Renee. That's good. Awesome. That's what I want to hear. The 2020s, keep hitting those. Oh, you're doing the labs, Monique. Very good. Keep hitting those labs. Keep doing what you need to do in that regard. And I know that within a very short time, I'm going to see you guys taking the mocks, learning from the mocks, and then going to the real thing. Because the mocks, you need to schedule those mocks like an event, like schedule them the way you would schedule the PMP. Just say, okay, on September 10th, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to take that final mock exam. And then on the 17th, I'm going to take the next mock. And then on the 24th, I'm going to take the next mock after I've closed the gaps. If you don't schedule it in, folks, it's going to be hard. All of these things, because you guys are so busy, you're going to have to schedule them in, okay? Schedule them in, target the date where you're going to take each of those mocks. There are 250 question mocks and there are 3 200 question mocks. And I'm telling you, these mocks are right up there with the real PMP exam. According to all the people that we've heard from over the past number of weeks, same story. The 2020s, Renee, I'm glad you're enjoying those. The 2020s and those mock exams, they are just as miserable, if not more, than the real thing. Okay? So I want to encourage you. Keep doing what you're doing. All right? So my hard drive, it's just decided it's not going to allow me share this audio clip I wanted to share with you guys. Let me see if I could try another port and perhaps it will work. But the bottom line is this: you got to make the PMBOK guide as simple as possible for yourself. Just look at the content. Ask yourself, which of these things have I not taken a look at before? And if there's any, go to the link I'm typing in now. It's tiny.cc/sigma PMO. Renee, I just took a look at your email finally last night with the PowerPoints that you sent. So that looks really good, and those are fantastic study aids for you to use. That is very, very good. That will definitely help you get all the information in. And I'll encourage anyone else listening, make your own study aids, get innovative with it, and just keep on surrounding yourself with the thought of the PMP exam. And once you get certified, the sky's the limit from there. The sky's the limit. Okay, so let me see if I can plug this into a different port. If my audio goes, don't worry, I'll be back, but I'm just going to disconnect for a little bit. Okay, So I know my audio went away for a bit. Hopefully it's back now, and I think I actually got my hard drive to function. It's funny, the way these hard drives work, if you've used a particular port once, if you try to use any other port for that drive, it refuses to function, and that's what was happening in this case. But anyway, in this audio that I want to play for you, it hones in on simplicity, thinking about the processes in a simplistic fashion, but thinking about them in such a way that you truly know the process, but simply, okay? Let me talk about a different process before I play the actual soundbite that I want you guys to listen to. So let's talk about the process known as conduct procurement, okay? Conduct procurement is a process that it seems to be very, very simple because we see what happens at the end. Oh, it's the awarding of a contract. But you actually need to break it down a little bit more, into more granularity. So if I open up to that chapter, 12.2, I'll just tell you at a high level. I'm looking at page 482. All right. So there's a number of things that happen here. It says conduct procurement is the process of obtaining seller responses. Now, what they didn't tell you before that is conduct procurement is the process of advertising RFPs, RFQs, IFNs, etc. Because you first need to advertise the opportunity before you can get those responses. Okay? So, conduct procurement is the process of advertising opportunities to prospective sellers. That's not written there. Also, it is the process of carrying out bidder conferences and answering questions that prospective sellers may have. That's not there. It just says obtaining seller responses. So where is all that information hidden? It's hidden in the book, but you're going to have to dig it out. But in simplistic terms, conduct procurement is where we advertise opportunities, where we answer any questions sellers may have, or prospective sellers may have, where we negotiate. There are 3 broad steps missing on page 482, but I know this is meant to be a summary, but yet, on your exam, it is important that you account for all those steps, because questions could have those steps all over them. And if you don't know the steps, you get into trouble. For example, I was teaching a group of folks a few years ago, and I was telling them advertising is important here. And they couldn't believe that advertising was done here. No, it's done in planned procurement management, they said. No, it's not. I said, it is, they said. That is where we put together all of our RFPs, IFNs, RFQs, etc. I said, that's where you put them together in planned procurement management, but that's not where you advertise. That's not where you send them out. You send them out as part of your execution approach. Oh, they said, you're right. Because they now spent time digging into the details. So as you read the guide, keep it simple, but at the same time, when you collect any information that is relevant to what is being done in a process, something you had never seen before, you want to add that to your mind map of processes. So every process, you need to have a mind map, or you need to have a simple note card where you're just keeping track of this happens here, this happens here, this happens here. Think about any random thing on a project. Stakeholder gets mad. Where does that happen? Stakeholder gets mad and you're trying to calm stakeholder down. Where does that happen? Stakeholder gets mad and then you make them happy again. Where does that happen? Stakeholder is anxious concerning a deliverable. Why? Because the schedule is going off track. How do you know the schedule is going off? Where did you get that information from? Which process? The portfolio steering committee is about to shut your project down because they are acquiring a new firm and the firm they're acquiring already has the deliverable you're working on. In which processes could that have been discovered? You see, you got to make this stuff as real world as possible while making it simple, is all I'm trying to say. All right, so if you take a look at page 482, still in that vein, it says, conduct procurement is the process of obtaining seller responses, selecting a seller, and awarding a contract. The key benefit of this process is that it selects a qualified seller and implements the legal agreement for delivery. You see, that's only half of the story. You know where you get the other pieces of the story from? By taking a look at the figures under those descriptions. So 12.1 has a description. Look under it for that figure and try to make sense of the figure. Account for those inputs. Account for those tools and techniques at a high level. At a high level. So for example, if I look at 12-4 under 12.2 on page 482, I would say, so conduct procurements is where eventually a contract is awarded. But before we get there, we need the project management plan because it contains, then I could make this very brief. Instead of listing out the 7 bullets or however many they are under project management plan, I need to go for the throat. I need to go for that one that is the heart of that mention of the project management plan. So we got project management plan and so many items. Which one is the most important? That's the one you need to go for first on your first iteration of reading this stuff. And I would go for procurement management plan because that's really what guides me on how to run this process I'm in. You see, then I would go to project documents. Which ones jump out at me? Well, I understand what I'm doing here. I need to advertise some of this stuff, but I also need to make clear what exactly I want as a customer. So I need to look at requirements documentation. I also need to be aware of risks because there could be some risk-related procurement decisions taking place. Then I've got procurement documentation. And of course, within my procurement documentation are all those things I just mentioned. You know, all of those things that needs to be advertised. We call them bid documents, RFIs, RFQs, RFPs. And then seller proposals, without a doubt, are at some point going to come back in here. You see how I'm breaking it down? You have to rationalize, okay? So as you go through the content, see if you can make sense out of why something is an input. What is the main thing? What am I going to attack at the throat from this large laundry list? I mean, it's like a 10-headed beast, you know, but you got to go for that one, you know, like Medusa, you got to go for that one, that one thing on the Medusa's head that's going to bring Medusa down, right? Because there's so many project documents, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. And the project documents are unrelenting. They never get less from beginning of the PMBOK to the end. So when I see project documents, I want to go for that one that makes the mention of project documents worthwhile, you see? So moving on to the tools and techniques, I've pretty much explained some of these. We need expert judgment to review these proposals. Advertising is a given. Bidder conferences is a no-brainer. Data analysis, the proposal evaluation, it's spelled out right there in figure 12-4. Under data analysis, the big thing you want to go for is we're evaluating proposals. Think about it. Data analysis sounds so foreboding, but proposal evaluation sounds, oh yeah, business as usual. You see, that's why you got to look at this image so that you demystify the cryptic mention of data analysis in many processes. If you're looking at figure 12-1, it tells you data analysis. That's good at a high level, but you need to hone in to figure 12-4 for conduct procurements to really know what the fuss is about, you see. And then integration, or interpersonal, I beg your pardon, and team skills, it sounds very, oh yeah, general. But if you really narrow it down, what they're talking about is the art of negotiating. And that's there. So you got to break this stuff down, make it real, make it simple, after you have ironed out the first level of simplicity. At that point, you take quizzes, you find your gaps, and then you move to the next layer of difficulty or ambiguity. and you unravel it. You get into the details, into the meat of anything that has a second layer to it. And lots of these ITTOs, they've got multiple layers to them. You just got to keep digging until you get to the bottom of the story. For example, so at a high level, I explained interpersonal and team skills was negotiation. But it is good to get to the next level of awareness of what PMI is talking about. And for that, you got to dig into more detail. So on page 488, it says negotiation is a discussion aimed at reaching an agreement. Procurement negotiation clarifies the structure, rights, and obligations of the parties and other terms of the purchases. So when you hear negotiation, you first of all think, oh, price. But it's not all about price. It's about structure, rights, obligations. It could be about payment iterations. It could be about anything happening post-contract that may not necessarily cost you that much more money. So whenever you hear negotiation, just think like that. You see, and it says final document language reflects all agreements reached. Negotiation concludes with a signed contract document or other formal agreement. So now you're aware that not all negotiation is all about the word contract. It could be some other type of agreement that can be executed by both buyer and seller. That's the way I need you to approach this stuff, okay? If you approach it in this fashion, I think you will be making the PMBOK guide a lot easier for you, and you'll get to the point of perfection a lot easier, okay? For those of you who are on the learning management system, Renee and Monique and anyone else who's listening, I'm really hoping, folks, that you are taking copious notes. I'm hoping that you are comparing my views with some of the ideas you had before, trying to match them up, stuff like that. I'm really hoping you're doing that. Okay? Renee, I see your chat. Yep, the power review. The power review has the 50-question quiz. And then this one, there's a second 50-question quiz in the main test. I think it's right there in the main queue. I think it's on that first page. So I would encourage you to look into that. But for now, what I'm going to do is play for you guys the develop project charter process analysis that I've been working on. Just excuse me. Need a drink. 1 second. There's so much to say, I can't even take a break from speaking. Okay. So what I'm sharing with you are some of my ideas about Develop Project Charter, and I try to make it simple and break it down in such a way that anyone who is getting ready for the exam will feel comfortable going through the 49 processes. If you can make them as real as your neighbor is real to you. What's your neighbor's name? You know your neighbor's name. You don't even think twice about your neighbor. How does your neighbor look? You can probably describe your neighbor, right? You could probably describe what their yard looks like. You could probably describe a lot of things. See, that is how you need to relate to these ITTOs and processes. Look at them as characters, break them down as simply as possible, as granular as possible, and they become easier and easier to digest. Okay, that's the whole idea about this. So I'm going to play this for you, and take a listen. And if you have any questions, you can chat them down below, and I'll get back to you with answers. Okay, so let's go. Let's listen to this clip on developing the charter, developing the project charter. All right.
Hey, thanks for joining. You did it. Nice job. Introducing our project management trainer, speaker, author, and coach to thousands of professionals and organizations worldwide, including NASA, the U.S. Air Force, USACE, U.S. Army, the Department of Transportation, the FBI. Your friend, Phil. Over to you, Phil.
Welcome to today's session. We're talking about making project management for your exam or in general as simple as possible. I think one of the reasons why people get stuck when they study for the PMP exam is majorly because they approach project management from a place of ambiguity or difficulty. And that shouldn't be the case. When you approach project management, you want to make it as simple as possible. The PMBOK guide is already big. It can be looked at as being verbose and convoluted, even though I don't believe it is. But approaching this subject matter for the first time, I did think it was a huge mass of mess. It was very, very difficult. I remember it took almost 2 consecutive Saturdays to just get through the first 3 chapters. It was excruciating. I had no bearing, no understanding of what exactly they were trying to achieve from all the discussion. It seemed like a wall of text I was trying to plow through. But long story short, years later, after that experience, after passing the exam, I can see where the problems are when people try to gravitate towards project management from this lens, this PMI lens. Let's take a look at projects the way people would look at projects without any of that knowledge. I've worked with many, many different folks, different ages, millennials as well, and I've noticed the way they approach projects, the millennial folk, is a straight up matter of fact, we need to get this done type of mentality. Let's go for it. Let's use a simple tool. Let's organize people. Let everyone know what they're meant to do. Let everyone know their tasks. And let's use the simplest tool available. And I'm talking from experience of training lots of companies across the world. The millennial generation, they know that the work itself can be tough. The coding work, the testing work. So why do we need to make the project management work so laborious? Let's strip it down, bare bones, make the management of the work as simple as possible. And that is what your approach needs to be. Your approach in project management as you get ready for this exam needs to be one in which you look at projects as a temporary endeavor to get something done. So what? Everyone has to get stuff done in their life, right? Everyone has to get some short-term endeavor done. And I would like to look at projects as just that, short-term endeavors. Short-term endeavors. Forget about the tools. Think about what you are doing in project management. What are you doing in project management? You're trying to get your project completed. Have that in the back of your mind first, even before looking at the PMBOK guide or some big old study guide. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to get a handle on how to steer this ship. Okay, that needs to be your mindset. And as you think like that, everything else begins to make more sense. With everything you look at in the PMBOK guide, you need to ask, how is this helping me? How could this help me? How could this help me achieve my end goal on a project? Another problem that I find with some folks as they study the PMBOK guide is they look at the PMBOK guide as cut out for certain industries only. So they would look at a process and say, oh, earned value, well, that's for people in construction, or that's for people in engineering. And that is not a sensible way to look at these tools. You need to look at the PMBOK guide as a universal language that can be used on any project, depending on the size,
depending on the magnitude, depending on the visibility, so on and so forth. That needs to be your approach. And if that is your approach, everything else will fit in to place. Okay? So my suggestion to you as you study the PMBOK guide, look at the PMBOK guide as a supporting vehicle. All right? Just say, this book is here to support me. I'm not here to support it. It's here to help me. So anything in this book, I need to find a way of using it to help me. And that needs to be your approach. And truly believe that the PMBOK guide has tools, techniques, processes, and approaches to help you. You know, this is the part about getting your head right. So at a high level, at a very, very high level, chapters 1, 2, and 3 are all about framing your ideas about project management in general. This is not the tactical. This is more at a higher level, strategic type mindset level. So the summary of chapter 1 is project management is here to stay. It's on the map. It's useful. It's valuable. There are different audiences for it. And there are different ways that project management works in organizations. Matrix organizations, functional organizations, project-based organizations. They all have different spins or nuances regarding how project management is applied. And that should make sense. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 just go into a lot of detail to expand on some of these points. You know, like, what is a project? It's a short-term endeavor and many other things. It's undertaken to deliver value, to deliver a unique product, service, or result. What is a program? It's a collection of 2 or more projects managed in a coordinated way to obtain benefits from the sum of those 2 projects that would not have been achieved by managing them individually. And we could go on with these definitions. But the bottom line is, don't get bogged down by trying to cram definitions in chapters 1, 2, and 3. Instead, understand the big picture. Like I'm telling you, project management is here to stay. It's on the map. There should be in organizations a body of people concerned with project management. The PMO. There should be a PMO in every organization. And the type of PMO should be tailored to the firm. And there could be various PMOs at different levels. You see, all of that stuff needs to be thought of in the beginning. PMOs are different. Organizations are different. The application of project management in different firms is different. Once you understand that, you stop sweating the small stuff. Some folks are sweating chapters 1 and 2 because they haven't crammed or memorized those definitions. That's a waste of your time. Know the story at a high level, okay? And then go off to the races with the more tactical stuff from chapters 4 to 13. Now, chapter 3 is important as well, because chapter 3 has a discussion about leadership and the differences between leadership and management. And actually, chapter 3 is not that difficult to comprehend. Even without project management experience, you should be able to understand chapter 3. It's everyday life. That's what chapter 3 is about. Leadership is everyday life. We see it all the time. The true measure of leadership is influence. It's all about your ability to influence people around you, influence people on the project. So chapter 3 is not that big a deal. But let's get into chapter 4. Okay, chapter 4 in the PMBOK guide starts talking about these 49 processes. And these are the processes that make a lot of people scratch their head, makes a lot of people just wonder am I ever going to understand this stuff? Of course you will. Don't worry about the excruciating detail at this point, okay? If you are new on the program towards PMP, I want to encourage you, don't go crazy if you don't remember all of the details just yet. The details will come, but you need to give yourself time to absorb the language, the new way of thinking and looking at projects. Some folks have been working on projects, but they've totally been flying by the seat of their pants for decades. Decades. And I'm not saying these people are fluffing or bluffing. It's just that they haven't been exposed to deliberate, intentional, documented project management. And because they haven't been exposed to this world, it is a little bit strange to them. And that's okay. That's all right. In order to learn, you must first of all be confused about something, right? As one of my mentors would say, you have to be confused to learn. So it's okay if you find yourself being confused about the PMBOK guide. Don't worry. It's the first step to learning. Being aware that you do not know. What you do not know is important. So let's talk about chapter 4, and these are going to be a series of discussions. Actually, I probably will jump around the chapters, but I'm going to start off with chapter 4 only because Develop Project Charter is the first process in the PMBOK guide, and it's in this chapter here, chapter 4. So when you hear Develop Project Charter, you need to think about a project being an endeavor that is first of all proposed, first of all an idea. Can we do this? Should we do this? Why don't we do this? And then the portfolio steering committee or the powers that be go back to the drawing board and say, we got this idea. Is this a good idea? How do we know this is a good idea? We need to do some analysis, feasibility studies, or perhaps straight up someone just shoots it down. Maybe it's been done in the past, or maybe it's just not feasible, or maybe it's wrong timing. That is so not on our agenda right now. It really depends. So as you approach the Develop Project Charter process, I want you to know that a lot of stuff happens before you get here. A ton of stuff. Before you get to Develop Project Charter, there could be several feasibility study rounds and discussions and iterations. And if we're talking about some macro deliverable, there's also going to be a lot of discussion that does not get presented in the PMBOK guide. So by the time you get to chapter 4 and the first process, a ton of things have happened. The project, tentative project, proposed project has been analyzed. There have been meetings with people who will become stakeholders, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there have also been budget discussions as far as how would we fund this? Can we fund this? So on and so forth. So by the time you get to Develop Project Charter, bear in mind, a lot has happened. This is not the first time that the project has been talked about or conceived. It could actually be a year or years that this discussion has been going on. Okay? This discussion could have been going on for many, many years before you actually reach the point of Develop Project Charter. Okay? Now, when you do get to Develop Project Charter and all the feasibility studies have been done, your main focus, your main attention is to develop the charter. That's all you want to do. This is not the place where you're going to be doing any further analyses. That's been done. This is all about authorization. Okay? So who authorizes the project? It could be a group of entities. It could be one entity known as the sponsor. It could be someone known as the initiator. And the initiator is a generic term for anyone who initiates a project. It could be the portfolio steering committee that acts as the initiator. A variety of things. But bear in mind, the project must be authorized by an entity. And 2, the project manager must be named. The project manager should work on the project charter with this entity. That is what is espoused in the PMBOK guide. So you get into develop project charter, you have to know what has transpired and what is happening now. Right now, the project charter is being authorized, developed, signed off on, project manager is named, project manager's authority is defined, and that's that. Now, where a lot of people have hang-ups is in the tools, techniques, inputs, and outputs for this process and many other processes. But again, I want to encourage you as you approach the material. This is important now. Don't get all crazy trying to memorize a bunch of ITTOs, because that ain't going to do nobody no good. It's not going to do you any good. Okay? So don't try to cram ITTOs. Instead, what you do need to do is go through the content as at higher level as possible. What you want to know is, what are these inputs? What are these tools and techniques? And what are these outputs at a very high level? Now, as you do this at a very high level, some of this information will stick because it makes sense, or it's easy, or it's right down your alley. So for me, as I approach Develop Project Charter, all I'm going to be thinking about is, what is my end game? What is my end goal? If you can understand what your end goal is, everything else is going to fit. So what is your end goal? Authorization. You want to authorize the project, correct? Yes. Okay, how do we do that? We get whoever is the sponsor, whoever is providing the financial resources, any other types of resources that this person may be involved in providing or influencing. We want to get that person, and it's a one person or one entity mindset. It's not your boss. Your boss is not the default. It's the sponsor, okay? The person who provides the financial resources for the project is not necessarily your boss. If you're in a matrix firm, you report to 2 people. And on one project, it could be person X, who is the person that provides resources. On another project, it could be person Y. So anyway, you get this entity to authorize the project, to name you as the project manager. Now you begin to backtrack thinking, what documents would I need in order to develop a project charter? How would I develop a project charter? For example, this is how you need to be thinking about this stuff. Now, to underscore my point, I'm going to help you by talking casually about some of these project charter ITTOs. Okay? So as you think about the project charter, what happens if you are working on a project for an external source, an external entity? Do you think they have a say in the development of the charter or not? Do you think that anything they have, maybe anything they've said or done, has an impact on the charter? You better believe it, of course. So I'm not going to approach this in strict rotation as in the PMBOK guide. I'm just going to tell you straight up how this would be in the real world. So in the real world, you're working on this project for an external source. One of the major factors or major items that would contribute to the project charter is a contract. If you have a contract with a buyer to provide certain services, your firm will not just create a charter without knowing what's in the contract and without taking elements of the contract to highlight or underscore in the charter. You don't just do that. You don't just create a document, a piece of paper, without it being relevant to the stakeholders involved and the conditions at hand. So for that reason, we have the contract being an input to the developed project charter process. But watch this. When we talk about the contract, it is not explicitly called a contract in the developed project charter process. It's called an agreement. You see? So as you look at stuff in the PMBOK guide, some of it should normally be so obvious, but because they are called something else, you really don't catch it immediately. The PMI say that agreements are used to define initial intentions for a project. That's a contract in many instances. They go ahead and they tell you that this could be a contract, an MOU, known as a Memorandum of Understanding, Service Level Agreement, an SLA. It could be letters of agreement, letters of intent, and you may hear these referred to as LOIs, letters of intent, verbal agreements, email, or other written agreements. But the main fact here is agreements could be an input to developing the project charter, because the project charter incorporates a lot of information from different sources. Another one is a no-brainer. Think about it. You're working on a project to deliver something, to deliver value, hopefully. How is that value going to permeate into the business, or how will the benefits of that project be experienced in the firm? You would have thought someone would think about that before authorizing it, right? Oh, we're going to implement this big old system. Okay, how do we get the benefits of this system? What if nobody uses the system? What if it begins to collect dust and it becomes like the Millennium Dome, a white elephant project, and you are now looking for ways to use the deliverable instead of the deliverable to immediately fulfill a need? You see? So when we talk about the project charter, you cannot distance the project charter from the benefits management plan. And you cannot distance the charter from the concept of a business case. So what are these? Well, when we talk about a benefits management plan, it's a plan for how the benefits of the project will be realized. What is the time frame for the realization of benefits A, B, and C? What about D, E, and F? Do they all have the same increases, and then we see the full benefits of whatever we're trying to implement? That information should also be a candidate for inclusions in the inputs of developing a charter. What about a business case? What about making a case for the project? Why are we doing this? Which goes hand in hand with the benefits management plan and is referred to as business documents. Why shouldn't we consider these? Of course we should. And that's why those are inputs as well. As you're developing your project charter, you're also thinking about any constraints, any legal constraints, any regulatory requirements. You're thinking about marketplace conditions. These could influence the authorization of the project. These are not going to influence holding a paper and a pen and signing off on some charter, but it is something we need to consider before we sign the charter. Legal requirements. Have we really thought about those in the context of this project? What about organizational governance? Will a project of this nature create problems? Will a project of this nature create any issues? All of these EEFs need to be thought about. Organizational process assets could be helpful here in that we have templates for the project charter that may exist in a firm. We may also have historical information that should be considered, lessons learned. That's why we have OPAs as an input. Now, what have I done in the past 5 minutes plus? I have pretty much taken these huge unwieldy ITTO terms that you see and made it every day. You gotta make it every day, folks. Don't just read blandly. Don't just read blankly or blindly. But you really, truly want to every day, just take an account. As you study, take an account. What is the implication of this in the real world? How has this affected my real world? Have I seen any instances of this in my real world? That's what you should be asking. How does this factor into my real world of projects? How does this factor into my home improvement project? How? How would I liken a project charter to a project I did last week at home? Well, you have stakeholders at home, right? Some of those stakeholders may weigh in on if that charter is signed for the home improvement project. Some stakeholders may say, no, this isn't a good use of our time or money. That kind of thing. So wherever you are in the spectrum of studying for the PMP exam, I would like to encourage you to make the dialogue real. And if you're not having dialogue, you should have dialogue with your colleagues, with your trainer, your coach, with yourself. And you want to get to the point where you look at all of these processes as business as usual. Just another day in the life of a PM. Okay? Really quickly here, if we go to the tools and techniques of developed project charter, you see that expertise, expert judgment, is needed or could be used. And that really is the defining mindset as you read the PMBOK guide. It is could be used, not has to be used. A lot of people are getting hung up on, has to be, it's listed, so it has to be used. No. If you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. What you do need to realize is that most projects use X. Some projects use Y. But using the word all is going to put you in trouble. I would not gravitate towards the word all in these discussions in 90% of these processes. Some of the processes, there are things that absolutely should be done. For example, should the customer inspect a deliverable? 100% of the time, yes. That is non-negotiable. But if you say the project team should and must have an RTM, a requirements traceability matrix, that's not mandatory. We could have a product backlog, release backlog, sprint backlog. So why do I need to bucket myself into I must have an RTM? You may choose to use a different tool to do the same thing. We want to collect requirements. We want to understand the gamut of this deliverable. Well, we could use other things, you see. So there are some things that we could use expert judgment. You don't say we have to. Under most circumstances, I would imagine it, but I'm not going to get hung up on saying must. And for that reason, there are certain things that don't stick completely in my awareness as I'm studying the PMBOK guide, because as I'm sifting through it, I know that this is a nice to do, or could do, but it's not one of the musts. So as a must, develop project charter, in my mind, should produce a project charter. It's a must. If you're doing develop project charter, the output should be a project charter. And of course, the assumptions log if we go there. Still talking about the tools and techniques for this process, we have data gathering. Makes sense. Data could be gathered on this process. We could brainstorm for it. We could have specialized groups called focus groups to give us data for this process, develop project charter. And we could have interviews with the stakeholders that already exist on the project to glean as much information as possible to be used in the development of the charter. Sometimes these folks may even approach you and offer up information that could be used in the development of something else on the project. Next one we have here is interpersonal and team skills. It's a no-brainer. If you're meeting with people, there could be conflict. You need to be ready with conflict management skills. Your stellar facilitation skills will definitely come in handy at one point or another, and the ability to manage meetings properly so that people aren't running amok. Very important. And then talk about meetings themselves as a tool and technique. The stuff here becomes a no-brainer. All right. Now, moving on to the final output, your project charter, the main thing you're working on, there could be various pieces of it. The project purpose, why are we doing this? Measurable project objectives, SMART objectives, related success criteria, high-level requirements, high-level project description, boundaries, and key deliverables, overall project risks, so on and so forth. So my suggestion to you is, as you go through the project charter on page 81 of the PMBOK guide, try and make these things stick in your head by just imagining, okay, what does that look like? Summary milestone schedule. Have you ever seen a milestone schedule? What does it look like? Pre-approved financial resources. What does that mean? Financial resources have been approved by some entity prior to this. Get that in your head. Anything that you read, you want to have a picture of, a concrete picture of, and that is going to help you better understand the process. Last but not least, we have the assumption log, and the assumption log is used to document constraints and assumptions at a high level, and then we can go into detail still in this document as we proceed through the project. So folks, my suggestion to you is, if you are looking to get PMP certified and you have a hard time in absorbing the content, I want to encourage you to make it as simple as you possibly can. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, sir. Keep it simple, sister. Make it such that you can absorb the content. You can absorb the information in tiny chunks. And if you find a section, because you know they've done a great job breaking it into sections, if you find a section that is very, very cumbersome, I want to encourage you to drop a line into this channel. Find one of the videos that makes the most sense and leave a comment for help. You know, just ask, hey, I need help. I don't understand this, or I'm struggling with this. And of course, we'll be more than happy to get back to you with answers. And we know that your answers will also help other folks who are studying for the test. Okay? And with that, we've come to the end of our brunch time PMP. Just a quick conversation. Find out how you're doing, give you some encouragement, and to let you know we've got a course out there on the learning management system. We've got so many folks who have gotten certified within the past number of weeks, and they all went through the learning management system. So I'd encourage you, go to Praizion.com, check out what we've got, Praizion.com. Check it out, and if you're looking for a course to help you across the finish line, we've done that so many times, and it will be a pleasure to have you join. Okay, well, I wish you all a very nice rest of the week, and keep studying the PMBOK guide in a realistic fashion.
So that's pretty much it, folks. That's what I told you I was going to play for you, and you have heard it all. You've heard how to keep this stuff simple. I hope you're going to take this book, put it in a chokehold, and make it as simple as possible. Now, I was talking about a course I was looking at earlier on my mini. Well, that's the course right there, Risk Responder. And we have many other courses like this right there on Vimeo. And just to show you how easy it is to stay in sync with this stuff, I'm just going to play a little bit of the lesson. It is so simple to study on the go with great study materials like this. You simply tune into the course, press the button, and up comes the video.
Conversation. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker and coach for today, Dr. David Hilson. Welcome, David.
Hi, thank you, Phil. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
So anyway, that's it. That's the course I've been watching, and we have many more courses like this from Praizion. In fact, if you look for Praizion on Vimeo, you'll find a plethora of courses, those that get you indoctrinated into the world of the your friendly book, PMBOK guide, those that take you from where you are in your prep, maybe after studying for months on a different system, and you're like, this system is too weak, I need something stronger. Well, you can sign up for the PMP exam power review, you see. And then if you wanted to go the full 35 contact hours, we also have a course on there that does just that. So go to www.praizion.com, praizion.com. Check out the course material we've got there for you. Many of the bosses that I speak about day in, day out, they went through this learning system. They followed the system. The system is very, very intentional, breaking down all of the content into bite-sized chunks so that you can digest process by process easily. Many of the students took tons of pages of notes, 70 pages, 60 pages of notes, just talking about notes from the videos. And some of them, even without having the book, even without having the book at the time, this was way back earlier on this year, some of those folks went ahead and killed the exam, even without using the book, you see. So I would like to encourage you, get on that system, okay? See what we've got there. Take a look at some of the sample videos. They're very bare bones, no fluff. What we don't do is teach what we haven't used. All of this stuff that you see me talking about on the channel, is stuff I've used. I know some people would say, Phil, what do you do? Is all you do make videos? Trust me, I've been in projects and programs that you don't even want to know about. Crazy projects and programs with the good, the bad, and the ugly stakeholders. Oh, did I just say that word? I'm sorry. I better shut it down for today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on another one of these PMP exam brunch times. Remember, if you've got any questions, actually I should check for questions. So why don't I do that? Let's see if we got any questions in while I was yakking away. All right, I think I'm all caught up with the questions. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate you joining the channel, following along, all of your support and being with us as we comb through all of this content. Thank you all very much, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.